Good afternoon. Happy birthday to you, even if it's not your real birthday, because welcome to the first day of the rest of your life. Let me just turn the cricket sound down a bit. Remember last week I said watch the cricket? I'm watching the cricket. Last day of the cricket. India require 98 runs to win and England require 3 wickets to win. It's going to be exciting for the rest of the day. Wimbledon was very exciting. Is that lunch? No, is that drinks? Not sure what's going on there. Some kind of break. Yes, Wimbledon was exciting over the weekend, although I just spent the last 3 days in near Birmingham, near Solihull actually, a place called Hampton in Arden, learning about generational wealth, or how to create generational wealth and how to create wealth in your life in general, particularly through property investments, but also just how to structure your general wealth and finances, which was fascinating, but not quite as much of the weekend as I hoped it would be. There was more emphasis on the property side, which I was a little disappointed about. But the thing we did on the beginning of the first day was fascinating to me, because it was something that I actually teach and have taught on here. And in fact, if you go onto my YouTube channel and search for below the line thinking, probably it'll come under. I'm not sure. You'll see me doing this presentation, and I was called out for it on Friday morning because the guy presenting it, Frank Flagg, really nice guy, who, kudos to him, was teaching mindset principles during the presentation, while he was talking about property investment and wealth management, because of course your mindset is actually really key to how you think about the world around you and the life and what you're doing in life and how much success you're having in life and all that kind of stuff. And one of the things that came up on the beginning of the first day, when they were talking about, here's an example of buying a property for no money, basically is what it said. Hello, Sarah. Here's how to buy a property with no money. And he went through the process, and I went, well, it's not really no money, is it? Because you've got to pay the lawyers and you've got to pay the stamp duty. So that's going to be what, £5,000, £6,000, £7,000 minimum just to do that. And he went, oh no, it doesn't have to be. It can be no money. And I was like, yeah, but how? It's like, how is that possible? And he said, you've got really negative thinking, haven't you, John? I was like, no, not really. I'm just asking, how is that possible? And then he said, well, you can, you only need 8,000. I said, yes, but I haven't got £8,000. And he said, oh, that's, again, you're being negative there. And I was like, well, what do you mean? I'm not being negative. It's true. It's a fact. It's a fact that I haven't got the £8,000. He said, yeah, but you could borrow it. And I was like, well, yeah, not really, but who am I going to borrow it from? And he got everybody in the room to say, who could lend John £8,000 if he really needed it? And of course everybody put their hands up, and I was like, oh, blimey, okay, because of course the room is full of people who've got cash flow and stuff, and I was the one person in the room who didn't have that sort of thing. And I was like, oh, okay, but blimey, but I'm not sure I would want to take money off these people with the risk of them losing it. And he went, oh, there's you being negative again. And I was like, well, no, not really. I'm like, how would I take £8,000 from somebody with no, where is their guarantees? Where's their, how am I sure that this deal's going to work out? How am I sure that I'm not going to mess it up? What if I do the legals wrong? And there's so many questions about why they might lose their money. And he said, well, okay, in which case you make sure that they can't lose their money, or that the process is only completed in certain way that they're guaranteed to at least own the property, even if they don't get their money back necessarily. So then they could sell the property. And by the end of the weekend, I could see where that was all coming from. And how you can put in legal agreements, and how you actually only risk, like, well, actually don't risk anything, because you have the conversation with the homeowner and you get them to agree things, and then you get them to sign a document that basically says that if they renege on the deal, then I don't know, can't remember. Oh, I don't know. They won't. I'm not sure what they actually did. But the point is, he had a document that basically got people to sign when you go to them in the first meeting, and they just basically said, "I'm not paying out my £1,000 until you sign this document." Like £1,000 is just to instruct the lawyers to start doing the work, basically, and to get a surveyor out to do the initial property valuation. That's then things start, and that's when costs start. And so it was like, sign this document to say you're not going to pull out of it basically in the next 6 months. And then, of course, you then know that you've got the opportunity to go through all the processes, assuming, and again, I'll assume there's like heads of terms thing in there. That was heads of terms, by the way. There's clauses in there that will say things like, if it turns out the property is not worth what you say it's worth or whatever, then we can back out of it, ourselves, that kind of thing. But essentially, you're like, this is the quid's in. This is a win-win situation, and they're definitely going to get their money back. In fact, they're not even going to get their money back. They're going to get, like, in the deal that they were talking about, it was that 8,000 investment over the next 12 months. They'd actually get, or 24 months actually, they'd get something like £29,000 back. So that £8,000, £29,000 is like a 300% return on their investment over 2 years. So that's a really, really good investment return. Anyway, that was just one situation, and he kept on saying to me, "Your language is negative," and I was like, "Well, no, I'm sorry." He wasn't saying your language is negative. He was saying you are being negative to me, and he was using this terminology, this OAR and BED, which is what I'm going to talk about in a moment, using an OAR or staying in bed. It's kind of the visualization I want you to think about to start with. And he was saying that I'm doing below the line thinking, and you'll understand what that means in a moment when I talk about it. And I was like, no, I'm not below the line thinking. I'm above the line thinking. And then I realized in the break afterwards that it wasn't that I had my thinking process was below the line. It was my language was below the line thinking. Was below the line language. So I was saying, I don't have the money. Whereas I could have phrased the same question is, how could I get the money? And I was saying, what if the investor loses their money? And that's negative thinking, as opposed to what could I do so that they feel comfortable that they won't lose their money. So again, I'm not, what I was actually thinking was, how can I prevent them from make sure they're not losing their money and all that kind of stuff. So I was trying to get to the positive outcome, but my phrasing of the language was negative and I hadn't realized I did that. And so obviously it was quite exciting for me to pick that up and become aware of that, because in the past I've talked about becoming ACE is this way around, isn't it? ACE is aware, then make new choices, and then put effort in over time to become ACE. And that's to retrain your brain. You become aware of the thing that you're doing wrong, then you make different choices, going forward, and then you put effort in over time to rewire the brain, retrain the brain. It takes that effort because you have to create new habits. You have to form new neural pathways in your brain, and that takes effort over time. And of course, the habits that you've got currently have been formed over years by repeating the same thing, by repeating the same stories. If you tell a negative story over and over and over again, you're retraining your brain to remember that negative story, as opposed to maybe telling the positive version of that story. We survived this situation, and then you've got a more kind of positive wiring of your brains. I've not really thought about this one before. This is kind of a cool thing. Is that if you tell a negative story, then you're embedding the negativity into your brain, whereas if you tell the positive outcome of that story, then if you tell the negative story, you're incorporating the negative mindset into your head, which is a victim mentality, which is the below the line thinking, the BED thinking, which we'll come back to in a minute. But if you tell the positive outcome, I survived, I got through it, here's what I learned, that's above the line thinking, that's OAR thinking. And your brain will then be wired, instead of a victim, as opposed to being a victim, you'll rewire your brain to be a survivor and a success, somebody who has success despite the negative things that have happened in their lives. Now, I've definitely got that. I just didn't realize that my language was coming across as being negative about my situations, rather than saying this is positive. I told a story over dinner on the second night. I was telling basically my life story. This has gone wrong, this has gone wrong, this has gone wrong, blah, blah, blah. And the lady across the table from me said, "Crikey, I'm surprised that you've managed to get through all that and still keep going." And I said, "Oh yeah, well, because, you know, what else can you do? And, you know, all that kind of stuff. And I realized that now when I'm saying it, that my language was negative, because it was like all these bad things have happened to me. What I wasn't telling, what I hadn't seen, and I haven't just seen now while I'm telling you this story, is that I wasn't saying the positive outcome of that. So I was doing the woe is me victim mentality about those stories, as opposed to the this was terrible, but I came through it and I then moved on to something else. And, you know, that thing in the past wasn't the thing that held me back. This is going to be a transformational moment for me, I think, this realization, because there's lots of things, like I've just said when I was talking to you just then, lots of things in my life where I've been telling the negative story, and I need to be telling the positive version of that story to, as I say, retrain my brain from bed thinking into OAR thinking. Okay, so let's talk about that now. Below the line thinking and above the line thinking. If you think of, this is the line here, this pencil here. Below the line thinking down here, there's three things here. It's BED, bed. And I kind of wish I'd printed something out for this, but I haven't. So BED is like below the line thinking. So this is blame, excuses, and denial. So you're using blame, excuses, and denial. That's where the bed comes from. BED, blame, excuses, and denial about situations in your life. It's somebody else's fault. It wasn't really my fault. That didn't really happen. That wasn't possible. That kind of stuff, those sort of negative phraseologies. Whereas above the line thinking up here is OAR, which is OAR, which you can use to row a boat, to move forward. So when you're stuck in bed, when you're in bed, you're kind of stuck, and you're kind of like, you know, it's a safe space, safe, comfortable space. But when you're out on the ocean and you're rowing, using your oar, that's a more destination-based outcome. It's a positive, it's a motion, it's moving, it's going somewhere, as opposed to staying in bed and feeling safe and comfortable. So OAR is I can never remember that first word. It really annoys me, because I keep wanting to say like opportunity or occurrence. It's none of those things. Let's do the other ones. Accountability and responsibility. It's so funny. I went through it this morning and I knew exactly what I was talking about. Now, OAR versus bed, line thinking. It's going to be annoying me. Ownership. Why can't I remember that word? That's really annoying. Ownership, accountability, responsibility. So you're above the line and you're taking ownership of the problem. You're taking accountability for your own actions, and you're taking responsibility for your actions going forward in the future. So, like that story there, I don't have the £8,000. That is excuses. I don't have it. It's actually kind of, yes, it's I don't have the money. Ownership. I'm aware of I don't have the money. Okay, that's kind of ownership. Accountability. It's my own fault that I don't have the money. Excuse me. Responsibility. I am taking responsibility for finding that money, finding a way to make that money, or finding a way to have access to that money. So that then becomes my responsibility to deal with that situation. And what I was doing actually was saying, I don't have the money. How could I get the money? But I didn't say the how can I get the money bit. I was just saying, I don't have the money. I was shortcutting to the negative story, as opposed to the, the question I could have asked to Frank was, sure, but how can I get the 8,000 if I don't have it myself? That would be a positive, directed story version of that type of thing. So I'm gonna see if I can find while we're chatting, so I can hopefully hold up. Actually, I'm gonna have to show it to you, aren't I? Okay, and then we go bed and OAR. Hopefully I'll find, because I've searched for this in the past, and here we go. So this is oh, okay, yeah. So this is, I'm going to show you. I'm going to flip the camera around and show you this picture, because it's there you go. Ownership, accountability, and responsibility. They go above the line, and then blame, excuses, and denial below the line. And then they've got a couple of examples there. Okay, can we explore that more so I can understand it better? Oh, well, that's because of X, Y, and Z. So that's below the line thinking, and then above the line thinking. So the above the line thinking is, how can I understand that better? And the below the line thinking is, here's the excuse as to why that's happening. So that's an example of that type of thinking. Let me just find, let's go in there and then information, because that will be in, no, it's not, okay. Tell you what though, there's 2 videos on here, 3 videos on here, and I'm assuming then that these videos, because there's no words in there, so I'm assuming that Google have, I don't know, watched these videos and... Good morning, my awesome replay viewers, how are you doing? There you go. That was, oh, OAR versus bed. Oh, actually in the information there. So change your story, change your life. There you go. When was this? When was this recorded? 24th of September 2020. There you go. That's me teaching that. Let me grab that link. Can I? Well, to be fair, that's probably on YouTube. Actually, I'd probably better find it on YouTube. Let's find it. That's what this one's about. This is good morning. Happy Saturday. There we go. Happy Saturday. That one was. This is. There you go. OAR in bed. Nothing happens to me. It happens because of me. Wherever I go, there I am. The actions you take get you where you are. The actions you take get you where you want to be. I'm not sure about that. I'm not sure what that is. But anyway, but this is, when was this? This was Friday, July the 9th, 2021, when I was doing that video. And I'm assuming that this one here is much the same. Good afternoon. The more I practice, the luckier I get. Gary Player. Here we go. I must talk about, yeah, OAR in bed. There you go. I've obviously mentioned that in there as well. So 3 different videos where I've talked about OAR in bed, and obviously this one is going to be OAR in bed as well. So this one's now going to come up as being along the same sort of lines. Interesting. I didn't know I had those in my photos album. But there you go. Anyway, so that is the concept of above the line thinking and below the line thinking, taking ownership, accountability and responsibility of your future going forward, and avoiding blame, excuses and denial, and making sure that your language, because that's where I was, is not blame, excuses and denial, and actually is taking ownership, accountability and responsibility for going forward. So, or even if it's something that happened in the past, and actually, this is interesting because several times throughout these things, I've also talked about the difference between excuses and reasons. Morning, Michelle. Oh, afternoon, Michelle, in fact. Excuses and reasons. So reasons are things that happened in the past, and excuses are things that are coming in the future. So you use an excuse to avoid doing something in the future, whereas the reason that something happened in the past is the reason it happened. Because a lot of people say, "Oh, that's just an excuse as to why that happened." You go, "Well, you're kind of, but actually, that is what happened, and that is the result of what happened. So that was just the reason in the past. It wasn't an excuse, because an excuse is future based. That is me using that as an excuse going forward to avoid doing something in the future. I mean, and actually, to be fair, in this situation, that could be this situation too. So if you're below the line thinking, you're using an excuse to stop yourself from taking action on something that you know you should be taking action on, but you're using an excuse to stop yourself taking that action instead of taking responsibility for taking the action. So that classic thing where there would be fitness, for example. So, I have got a cold, so I can't go out running. Okay, that's an excuse. You could go out running even with the cold. You might not have the energy, and then that would kind of be a reason to not go out for running. You kind of get that. But then it's like, well, okay, so I've got a cold today, and I can't go out running today or this week, for example, but next week I definitely will. So that's kind of taking, it's kind of excuse / reason this week, because it's true. You're ill, you can't do the exercise if you're ill. That's kind of fair. It's valid. It's a valid reason why something can't happen. But you could also say, I'm not going out running today because I've got to go to the shops this afternoon and I need the energy for that. Well, that's definitely an excuse. You could definitely go out running and go to the shops. There's no reason why you couldn't do both of those things, for example. Or I can't go out running this morning. I don't have enough time before I need to leave for my event. Well, you can just get up a bit earlier, couldn't you? Now, whether you want to or not is another matter. But again, that is using an excuse to avoid going out for that run or doing that exercise in the morning. Using the excuse of I've got to get up early to go to this event, to avoid doing that exercise before you leave. Yeah, these are things that you can think of, and then you can decide whether that's okay for you or not okay for you. There's levels to these things, obviously. But what I want you to encourage you to do is to start thinking about it and just becoming aware of it, so you can make different choices, and then you can put effort in over time to become ACE, ACE. And just be aware of that negative language that you might be using, which I was not aware of on Friday when I was asking those questions. And I could have switched it round and said, instead of "I don't have the £8,000," I could have said, "How can I get the £8,000?" Which is a more above the line thinking mindset process, as opposed to below the line thinking, "I don't have the money, I can't do it." The question is how can I find the money to be able to do it? That's above the line thinking. So anyway, that's my lesson for today. It is 25 past. That's a good little place to stop. I think it was a nice little example from real life for me, and also to recognise some places in my life where I am. And I've just realised that Michelle's probably chatting to me, and Sarah might even chat to me on Facebook. And because I haven't got Facebook up on my computer, I can't see the chat, because annoyingly, we still can't see the chat when we're doing a live on a phone. Very irritating. So anyway, let me just get that. Some places in my life where I am. I'm just live on a phone. Very irritating. There we go. That's my mute site. There we go. No chat. So that's fine. Anyway, that's all from me. Take care of yourselves. Sending you all the love. I'll see you at midday Monday next Monday for more mindset mastery stuff. Thank you for Jackie, by the way, this morning. I was in my 9:30 session this morning, for prompting me to talk about this today. I may not have thought about this particular example for my 12 o'clock thing, and now I have. And it's a great little bit of mindset training that we've done this morning. So good luck. Take care. Have a lovely week. I will see you next week. Bye for now. I love you all. And thank you for being here, Michelle. Lovely to speak to you. Or see you at least anyway. Bye.